Okay guys, today we're going to look at Chapter 2, Lesson 5. This is Compare and Order Fractions, Decimals, and Percents. Now, this one is going to take you a little bit more effort than the last 4 lessons. So let us get started. Okay, to compare fractions, you can follow these steps. The first step is find the least common denominator, or the LCD, of the fractions. Least common denominator is a vocabulary word. That is, we're going to find the LCM of the denominators. We're going to write an equivalent fraction for each fraction using the LCD, and we're going to compare the numerators. So we're going to look right here at the first one. We're going to say 2/3 is what to 4/9? And we have to figure out if it's less than, greater than, or equal to. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at these bottom numbers. So we have a 3 and a 9. Those numbers are not the same, so we have to find a common denominator. I know that I can change 3 into 9, so I'm going to leave 4/9 the same, so I'm going to drop it right down. But 2/3, I need to multiply to get my bottom number to be a 9. To get 3 to be 9, I need to multiply by 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 2 is 6. Now we're going to look at these top numbers. Is 6 greater than, or less than, or equal to 4? And the answer is greater than. Let's look at the next one. We have 5/12 is what to 7/8? Again, we're going to go less than, greater than, or equal to. We look at our bottom numbers. Those are two different numbers, so we need to find the LCD, which is the least common denominator. Now, if you don't find the number that's the smallest, as long as you find a multiple, that's just fine. So let's look at 12. My factors of 12 are 12 and 24. Now, I'm going to stop at 24 because I know that I can make 8 be 24. So I'm going to make both of these numbers to have a denominator of 24. To do that with a 12, I know that 2 times 12 is 24, and 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, so there's our new fraction for that side. To make 8 into 24, I'm going to say 8 times 3 is 24, and 7 times 3 is 21. Now, to find out what goes here in the middle, we're going to look at these top numbers since the denominators are the same, and that's what it tells us on our steps up at the top. Is 10 less than, greater than, or equal to 21? The answer is less than. Okay, let's go down here. We have 1/6 and 5/18. We're going to look at the denominator, and I know that I can turn 6 into 18. If you don't know that, you need to be studying your multiplication facts. So I'm going to drop this one down, and I know that 6 can turn into 18, so I need to figure out what I need to multiply it by. 6 times 3 is 18, and 3 times 1 is 3. Is 3 less than, greater than, or equal to? And the answer is less than. So that's what you do on those. I did not have one on here, but we're going to throw one in so we can order our fractions from least to greatest. So my fractions are going to be 1/2, 5/6, 2/3, and 3/5. So as you look at this problem, you can see that all the denominators are different. So we need to find a denominator that will work for each of them. Now I'm going to list out my multiples of 6. Since that's the largest number, I have the least amount to list out. So we go 6, I'm going to write down here, 6, 12, 18, and so far 5 fits into none of those, so I need to keep going. Then I get 24, 5 still can't go into 24, and I'm going to get 30. Now let's take a look at 30. 2 can go into 30, 6 can go into 30, 3 can go into 30, and 5 can go into 30. So we're going to rewrite these fractions with the denominator of 30 on the bottom. So there are 4 fractions I need to redo. So I'm going to write 4 of them down here with a 30 on the bottom. To get 2 to be 30, I'm going to multiply by 15. So 15 times 2 is 30, 15 times 1 is 15. To get 6 to be 30, I'm going to multiply by 5. 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 5 is 25. To make 3 be 30, I'm going to multiply it by 10. 3 times 10 is 30, and 2 times 10 is 20. Now our last one, 5 times 6 is 30, and 3 times 6 is 18. Now we're going to look at the numbers on the top, and we're going to put them in order from least to greatest. So our smallest number, we have 15, 25, 20, and 18. 15 is the smallest one, so that is our original fraction's 1/2, so I'm going to write 1/2. I'm going to cross those out so I know that I used them. Our next one is 18/20, which is really 3/5, so I'm going to write 3/5. Cross it out. I then go to 20/30, which is 2/3. And then I end up with 5/6, which is, we changed it to 25/30. Okay, so now let's take a look at the other side. You know how to compare and order fractions. Now we're going to compare fractions, decimals, and percents. So when we compare things, we're just like before, we're going to use less than, greater than, or equal to. So when we're comparing all of these things, we need to make sure that we change them all to decimals, all to percents, or all to fractions. Now you can do any way that you want, but it may be easier for you if you write them all as decimals. I don't care which way you do it as long as you change them both to the same thing. So on this first one, we have 7% is what to 7/10. Now on this one, I'm going to choose not to do decimals because I'm going to change 7/10 into a percent. And to do that, I'm going to multiply by 10 because percents are out of 100. I wanted to get 100 on the bottom, and we get 70 on top. So 70/100 is 70%. Now 7%, which is what we have here, is that less than, greater than, or equal to 70%. And that is less than. Okay, the next one's a little bit more challenging. We have 2/3 is what to 0.6. Now as we're looking at this, I'm going to change them both to fractions. When you change them both to fractions, you have to make sure you have the same denominator. So 0.6 means 6/10. And right now that's a 3 and that's a 10. I'm going to change them both to have 30 on the bottom because I know 10 times 3 will give us 30. So 6 times 3 is 18. And I know that 3 times 10 is 30. So 10 times 3 is 30 and 10 times 2 is 20. And we look at the top. We have 20 and we have an 18. 20 is greater than 18. Our next one, we have 0.7 over 8/11. I'm going to change this to a fraction. I'll change it into a decimal. So I cannot change 11 into 10, 100, or 1,000 very easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to divide. Top number always goes underneath. 11 does not fit into 8, so we have to add our decimal, bring it up, and add a 0. Now 11 times 7 is 77. We're going to borrow. 10 minus 7 is 3. We're going to add another 0 and drop it down. 11 goes into 30 twice. And now, I know we're not done with this division problem, but it's giving us enough of what we need so we can be done. Over here, this is 0.7. If I was going to put something right there, it would be a 0. So 0.70, and then our other one we changed to 0.72. So 70 is less than 0.72. So you should have a less than on that one. Our next one you'll like a little bit more than the first one, the last one we just did, because we either get to change them both to decimals or both to percents. I'm going to change them both to decimals this time. If you wanted to, you could change them both to percents. If you do it correctly, you'll get the right answer. So remember on a percent, we put our decimal at the end. We go 1, 2, we get 6.5. This is 6.5. This is 6.5. So it is equal. And our last one on our notes is a percent and a decimal again. This time I'm going to change them both to percents. So I'm going to go 1, 2. I get 44%. 42% is less than 44%. Okay. This next thing I'm bringing up is page 133 from our book, again 133, and I'm going to show you again how to do a couple of the ones up here and then two of them right here just so you can have a reminder. Now these ones, we either have fraction and fraction or they did fraction and decimal. So let's start with the fraction and fraction. We need to look at the denominators. There are different denominators here, so we have to make sure they're the same. I know 3 can be changed into 15 by multiplying by 5, so we get 5 on top because 5 times 1 is 5. And I know 5 can be changed into 15 by multiplying by 3, so we get 9. We're going to look up here at the numerators. 5 is less than 9. This next one we have 7/12 and 1/2. Some of you might not even have to show your work on this one because you know that a half of 12 is 6, so therefore 7 is larger. If you can't see that, we're going to go ahead and make a 2 into a 12 so they have a common denominator. We do that by multiplying by 6, so we get 6 on top there. We're going to bring the top fraction down, 7/12, because as a 7 is greater than 6. Okay, this next one, some of you may have this one memorized because it's 1/4. So 1/4 is 0.25, and we have 0.4. If it helps you, you can always add a 0 on so it looks similar to the other one. And this is less than. If you need to, you multiply 1/4 by 25. You get 25 over 100, which leads you to that right there. Okay, we're going to look at number 5 next. And what they're asking is putting them in order from least to greatest. No, we're going to do number 6. We need to find a common denominator because they're all different. But if I look at these 3 numbers right here, I know they can all change into 18. So I'm going to rewrite 3 fractions because the fourth one already has 18. And I'm going to have 18 below. Because 3 times 6 is 18, so 6 times 2 is 12. 9 turns into 18 by multiplying by 2. And 2 times 2 is 4. And 6 turns into 18 by multiplying by 3. 5 times 3 is 15. So the smallest one, we have 4/18, which is our original fraction, is 2/9. Then we have 11/18, which that is the original fraction. Then we go to 12/18, which the original fraction is 2/3. And we end it with 15/18, and the original fraction is 5/6. Now I understand that these ones take a little longer to do because I have more process to do it. And there's more of a thought process. So take your time, study your facts if it's really hard for you because finding a common denominator is all about knowing your facts.